In section 3b, we're going to look at recursion and recursive formula for sequences. And you really have to kind of understand notation here. So you see here, this is called, right here, is called the recursive formula for this particular problem. Okay, and that's to find your next term. You're going to take the previous term and add 10. And I'll show you a very organized way of setting this up. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to rewrite this formula. A with my n plus 1 subscript equals A with a subscript of n plus 10. Now notice it's telling me find the first 4 terms. A1 is the first term. So they actually give us the first term right here. So I need to find A2, A3, and A4. And then those, along with A1 of 40, would be my first 4 terms. So what I suggest you do is organize it like I do. I'm going to create a column over here with the recursive formula. So the first thing I need to find is A2. So I'm going to write A2 right underneath here. Now you kind of need to think about the subscript here. The subscript is n plus 1. Well, we have to get 2 down there. So you want to think of what n is in this particular stage when we're trying to find A2. Well, what plus 1 would equal 2 and give me that 2 down there in the subscript? Hopefully you can see that n would equal 1 when we're trying to find A2. Because if I had 1 plus 1, that would give me this 2 right here. So if n is 1, then I look over on this side and I have A with the subscript of n, so that's going to be A1, and I add 10. Well, what is A1? A1 is 40, so it's going to be 40 plus 10, which equals 50. So I just found A2 to be 50. Next one I want to find is A3. Now I'll go back to this recursive formula. If I want to find 3, what would give me a 3 right down here in the subscript? What n plus 1 has to equal 3? So n is going to equal 2 here. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say A with a subscript of n. Well, n is 2. So A2 and add 10. Well, A2 was 50. It was the last term we found. We're going to add 10. So that's 60. Now you can start to see the pattern here. We're adding 10 to the previous term. Okay, but I could go through and figure this out as A4. N would equal 3. N is going to increase 1 each time. So I'm going to take A3 plus 10, which is 60 plus 10, or 70. So these are my first 4 terms, and you probably should write your sequence just with commas separating them. 40, 50, 60, 70. I mean, either one of these would be okay. Okay, so let's go down to 42 now. This gets a little trickier here. Okay, especially when we have something like this n added there. And that's why you got to kind of do it the organized way that I was showing you. So we need to find A2, A3, and A4, because we already know A1. So I'm going to start out by writing this recursive formula over here. So A subscript n plus 1 equals A subscript n plus this bigger n. So if you think about the first term I have to find here after the A1 of negative 8 is A2. So if I'm going to find A2, what plus 1 would give me this 2? Well, n has to be 1. Okay, so now I replace over on this side that I see an n, I've got to put a 1. So it's A1 plus 1. Well, now we're going to fill in what A1 is. A1 was negative 8, so it's negative 8 plus 1, which equals negative 7. So A2 is negative 7. Now I'm going to find a3. Go back to your recursive formula. I have to get a3 down here. So what plus 1? N plus 1 has to equal 3. So n is going to be 2. So that means I'm going to take every place I see an n here, I'm going to put a 2. So on that first subscript, but I also need to put 1 here. So now I'm going to add 2 to my second term, a2. Well, a2 was negative 7. Add 2, it's negative 5. So this one is negative 5. Now I got to find a4. Okay, that's my next term that I need to find. Go back to your recursive formula. In order to get a 4 down here, n plus 1 has to equal 4, or what plus 1 is 4? N is 3. So I'm going to take a3, and I'm going to add 3 this time because n is 3. Well, a3 was negative 5. I'm going to add 3, so that will equal negative 2. And there's my first 4 terms. And let's write them with commas separating them. Negative 8, negative 7, negative 5, negative 2. So notice what happened on this one. I started with negative 8. I added 1, then I added 2, then I added 3. That's the pattern in my sequence.